Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to LinkedIn Tuesday. It's August 4th, 2026. We're very glad you're with us this afternoon. Please note this event will be recorded. The recording will be on the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. Speaking of the Zoom chat window, I encourage everybody to open up the chat window, give us your name, the position you're looking for, two or three target companies, give us your email, your LinkedIn address, your phone and city if you'd like. And if you have companies that you have connections and you can help other people, please let us know who those are because you never know who you'll be able to help on this call. Save the chat when this meeting's over and connect with everybody else who's on the call because you never know who can help you in your process looking for your next job. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2008, I started a website called careerdfw.org, a website to help those unemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I launched a second website, careerusa.org, to help those around the United States. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon. If you see me in person, I always have copies with me. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. That group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007 when the prior leader landed a job. And I'll tell you about our upcoming program this Friday at the end of this session. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team, also known as the PIT crew. Their motto is practice early, practice often. Don't wait until you have an interview scheduled. Schedule one now, practice your interviewing skills so when they do call you, you're ready to go. For more information, just go to dallaspitcrew.com. Well, we have four outstanding speakers who talk about LinkedIn. They rotate through on a monthly basis. Today, our speaker is Locke Alderson. He was a career consultant. He hired many people over the years as a recruiter. And today he's going to talk about how to use LinkedIn for job hunting, strategies to get results. So Locke, thank you very much for being with us today, and it's all yours.
Jeff, am I gonna? I think we got it, Jeff.
You do.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jeff, for inviting me again. Jeff puts up with me in my technical obsolescence. I frequently he has to bail me out and get my screen to work properly. But there's my bio up on the screen. As Jeff mentioned, I have a number of years in recruiting, probably 43 in total, 12 of those with my own recruiting firm. And starting in 2001, I started working with those in career and job transition. In 2013, an outplacement firm out of New York, Mullen and Associates, asked me if I would help them with a contract that they had, try it out for 30 days or for 90 days getting paid for what I'd done as a volunteer for 12 years. And that lasted for 4 years and 90 days before he sold out to Lee Heck Harrison. And a month later, I joined Lee Heck Harrison, retired from Lee Heck Harrison at the end of 2019, but still work with those in career and job transition. My background includes, as you see, a number of companies there. That's not all of them, but that's a good bio of that. And part of my background I like to talk about is my relationship with the Lord. I am a Christian and not afraid of that, mentioning that. But all too often when I was in job search mode, and that's at least 5 times, when I was out of a job, and I won't count the times when my contract positions ended because there were a number of those as well. But blessed be the Lord, day after day he bears our burden from Psalm 68:19. One of those times I was unemployed in California. I knew a couple of months in advance that a layoff was coming. And so actually sent out about 50 resumes, interviewed actually with 19 companies, if you can believe that. 16 of them said, no, we don't have a match. 2 of them said, well, you're still a candidate for us, but we're looking at others. and one of them said, "We like you. We'd like to bring you to Texas and have you join our staff." And I did, and that was a great blessing because I had a stay-at-home wife who was not working, and with a baby and a three-year-old daughter. So that's kind of my background. But I've turned to the scripture several times when I've been in a job search mode. Well, many of you are coming to LinkedIn and wanting to find out about LinkedIn. Some of you have barely found out about it. Others of you are very proficient at it. But LinkedIn has asked you the question why you're using it, if it's job hunting or networking. For most of you on the call, it's probably for job hunting purposes because LinkedIn is the most important tool in a recruiter's toolbox. I know when I joined LinkedIn in 2005, it was a relatively small organization, but today there are over 1 billion people on LinkedIn worldwide, and 200 million of those are in the United States. So if you're using LinkedIn to find a job, it can be a game changer because the first part of the presentation is oriented toward aiming you to get what you found on LinkedIn, and then how do you find jobs is the second half of the presentation. So that's what we're going to cover today. Your headline, open to work sections, your dashboard and about sections. The about is, they used to call that the summary, but it's now the about section. Your work history, your skills and endorsements, then optimizing your profile, and then switching over to how do recruiters actually searching for a job, and some homework for you at the end. Before I get too far into that, I wanted to talk about AI and recruiting and LinkedIn and resumes, etc. There was an article by a lady named Lynn Williams who's working on a master's in education. She wrote an article for LinkedIn blog called Linky Locks and the Three Bears. And for those of you who have used AI for job hunting or to improve your profile or your resume, there's some dangers with that because I'll just share something from her article. The danger of using AI to enhance your profile or your resume, because AI is trained on massive amounts of existing content, it often results in safe, generic, predictable language. That's why so many profiles now sound interchangeable. And that's why recruiters and hiring managers feel like they're reading the same bland content over and over again. So one of the dangers of using AI are those that say, I'm not going to use it at all. And there are those that use, I'm going to jump in and use it completely, just use what they give me. And there are those of you that I recommend, if you're going to use AI, to balance it out and to tailor your resume to each individual consideration, each individual job in your profile occasionally. And jumping into LinkedIn, I want to talk about that. Well, really, it all starts with your profile. A number of things that you can see in my profile picture there, and that's an older version. The background shot is a Caribbean cruise that my wife and I went on about 5 years ago, I think. There's my name, my headshot, and my headline under my name. At that time, LinkedIn limited it to 140 characters. They've upped that to 220 characters, and I'm using open to work there, but I've limited the open to work to recruiters. Okay, those people who recruit, who subscribe to a license with LinkedIn, and there are two of those, one of which is called Recruiter. There's another one called Recruiter Lite. Recruiter costs $10,000 per seat per year and has access to everybody worldwide on LinkedIn. Recruiter Lite is limited to the United States. And one of the reasons that you might want to limit your search to just recruiters, if you're in a stealth mode, in other words, you may be still employed and you don't want your employer to know that you're looking, it's just to let recruiters know. Otherwise, I suggest that you open up to LinkedIn worldwide. Oh, but does the information you've entered in LinkedIn about yourself align with the market on LinkedIn right now? And does your profile address that target market? Those are some questions that you need to ask yourself about your profile, because that's the first thing that people see is your profile. There is basically the screenshot that you would see if I would do a screenshot with some of you today, and we hope to have time to do that. So what are you doing? What does your LinkedIn profile say? Does it attract recruiters and hiring managers' attention? Because first impressions are vitally important. There's too many profiles out there. As I said, there are 200 million on LinkedIn in the United States. Or does your profile look like an old rusty car? How long has it been since you updated it? One of the things about updating your resume or your profile is you need to do it. Activity, and I did a search for myself as a recruiter under a recruiter search in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I'm not on it anymore in the first 10 screens. That's 100 thumbnail sketches on LinkedIn. So your activity level on LinkedIn is vitally important to your being found on LinkedIn. But the freshness guarantee was something that somebody about a year ago mentioned to you, and that's kind of the thing. If you aren't updating your profile or tweaking it periodically. It's kind of like going to the grocery store and buying produce. If that red group of red apples is there and one of them is turning green, you're probably not going to buy that one. Or if you buy a bag of lettuce, which I occasionally buy the bags of lettuce, prepared lettuce, and look at the expiration date or best used by date. And so if it's beyond that, I'm probably not going to buy it. Same thing with milk or dairy products, or even canned goods and baked goods often have a best used by. So you want to refresh your profile periodically, and I recommend at least once a week doing something on your profile that makes a change. When we used to have resumes and we advise people about resumes, go to the job board and add a comma or take out a comma on your resume, because that means it's some activities there, and the computer considers that a fresh resume. But LinkedIn is a very powerful tool for job search and for networking and career management. So creating a strong LinkedIn profile will help you in your career search and land that job. So you want to update it periodically. Okay, you have 6 to 10 seconds to get my attention. What do you see on that? Well, you notice this is that same shot from previously on my profile. Notice I've opened up the open to work section so that there's that banner from about 5 o'clock to about 9 o'clock. It's open up to all LinkedIn members. So that's something you may want to consider. But how do you get what's called all-star status on LinkedIn? This is a chart that they used to have on LinkedIn when you could find out how your profile stacked up. Again, the things that you want to have on that are your industry and location, your current position, and 2 prior positions, your education, your skill levels, and your connections that you might want to have on that. So each of those has value and something like that. So completing your profile, these are the things that you want to be involved with doing. Having a professional headshot, although you can use a selfie. If you do use a selfie, make sure that you've got a decent background, that you don't have glare off your glasses, like mine does not have my glasses on. And you also want to have a banner or a background photo that's in there. And Jeff has got a great one for his. If you've looked at Jeff's, the headline that you use, you want to use a job title of positions that you're looking for. If you do not enter a headline, LinkedIn's going to be so gracious that they're going to use the title of your last job as your headline. You want to use the open to work under your headline to list additional job titles that are there. Your about section is really your summary of your career, and it's like your resume. It should highlight your accomplishments as well. And you want to use keywords from your profession. Another thing that's vitally important, wherever you put it, to have your contact information that's readily available. I strongly suggest that you put it in the first line of your about section. Because if we're not first degree connected and you haven't opened up your security settings, you may have a perfect background for the position I'm working on, but I have no way of getting in touch with you except through in-mails, which means that I'm sending an in-mail to somebody that's in LinkedIn that I know that knows you. And people aren't just on their in-mails if they're working, they aren't on them every day, 2 or 3 times a day. So that's another thing that you want to do. And likewise in your job title. If you have an unusual job title, like member of technical staff 3, and I did work for a couple of companies that use those kind of job titles, you want to use the job title that's normally used when you look for a job and put that in parentheses, or vice versa. Use the commonly used title and your actual title in parentheses. And do a description of your duties and results. You want to keep those pretty short and succinct, but also include keywords from your profession, because those are the things that recruiters search for, as well as skills from your profession and endorsements. You also want to have your education, awards, certifications, and professional development. All too often, when I look at people's education, awards, and certification area, those things stopped when they graduated from college. And likewise, your recommendations are vitally important. Your most recent positions, you should have 1 or 2 on there at least, because those are what people look for. That's like a letter of reference that you've put out there for people to look at. Again, going back to scripture, for I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, plans and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future, from Jeremiah 29:11. Because those kinds of words of encouragement were ones that I have, because there were days when after in job hunting, when I was at the bottom of a well, that roller coaster ride, and go all the way to the top and then all the way to the bottom. Another question that I would ask of you, if your headline is the only thing somebody sees about you, what does it say about you? That's the kind of question that you want to ask people, or ask yourself when you think about your headline. And we're going to look at some headlines in just a second. Does it tell who you are? Does it identify what you do? And does it tell what you've accomplished? Those are the things that recruiters are really interested in. and hiring managers are the same. Is your headline a grabber? Did it get attention from people? Let's take a look at my headline. And this is a way that you can test your headline. That URL at the bottom, headlines at sharethrough.com. I put that in and gave it an evaluation. For overall impression was 55 overall head score for headline, 65 for the engagement, but only 55 for the impression. I made some changes to it that are there. And with the changes, my overall score jumped by 22 points to 78. The overall score only about 7 points to 72, but the impression score went from 55 to 76. And you can test your own headline that way, put it in it and look at it. Well, let's take a look at some sample headlines. These have been gathered together on one screen, okay, and I have a couple of other screens to follow. Unemployed, retired, and seeking new opportunities are all headlines that I've seen, and they probably are all true, but they don't put you forward in the best possible light. Former VP of Finance, nothing wrong with that, except the question in recruiter's mind is how long has he been unemployed? Experienced digital design engineer is a little bit more qualifying for somebody. It gives an idea that he's not just an engineer, but he's worked in digital design. Okay, social media strategist, content manager seeking new opportunity with print, has experience with print and digital media, has worked in PR and marketing and corporate communications. A lot said in just a few words. The others are kind of brief, and particularly I've scaled them down just for that, but there are ones that kind of grab attention. Supply chain procurement and purchasing, senior accountant. There are probably 50,000 senior accountants in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. A general ledger, financial reporting and cost, further amplify what the individual's background. With executive assistants, there are probably 40,000 of those in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So budgeting and event planning are kind of important. IT project manager who's had experience with ITIL, and as a Scrum Master to work with Agile. Again, buzzwords that get recruiters' attention. But these are something, this is a chart that somebody shared with me one time that you can amplify your headline using these kind of things. Well, let's take a look using some of those and other headlines. Accountant, senior accountant, increasing productivity in highly regulated industries like telecommunications or natural gas or public utilities. Product manager specializing in the expansion of international business and aerospace. Okay, project manager with ITIL, Scrum Master, and Agile, but able to explain high tech to customers and deliver projects on time. So each of those are an improvement on the prior ones that you've seen with them. Here's another group. Systems analysts working in healthcare have digital indices, it should be indices, not indexes, to reduce hospital administration paperwork by 54%. If you've ever gone through the emergency room and checked in at a hospital, you know how much paperwork they try and work you through. So those are just some other examples that you can think of to do that. Another verse of scripture that I like is peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you, not as the world gives it to you. But let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. From John's Gospel, chapter 14, verse 27. So why use open to work? There are people that told me I don't want to share it with people that I'm out of work. Well, if you're looking for a job, you want to share it with as many people as you possibly can. So you notice some things there. There are open to work allows you to list at least list 5 additional job titles, another one that I may have under my name in your headline. Because recruiters almost always want to filter their searches by location. They're also interested in people that have done the job previously. You know, they're looking for people that have success. So if you use the open to work section, this is the chart that you get to use. Notice I put executive recruiter, professional recruiter. I've started with the word career. There's some drop down menu, some early artificial intelligence, if you will, the things that you can choose. Workplaces is important, whether you want to work on site, partially on site or partially remote or totally remote. Again, the locations, and this is where you can identify that you're open to relocation. You can also do that in your headline specifically itself. Because recruiters want to know that where people work. Most of you don't want to drive more than 20 or 25 miles to work, and that's my experience after 40 plus years in recruiting and 25 years in career counseling and consulting. So most of the job boards have a default setting on the open to work area of about 25 miles, because that's where applicants have told recruiters they don't want to travel that far. So that's the general setting. So if you're looking for a job beyond that, you may want to open it up to 50 or narrow it down to 5 or 10. I know I worked with a candidate when I was with Lee Harrison only wanted to work 5 miles from home. And there were jobs in the area for that person in that area. Okay. Another thing you want to look at is your analytics homepage. Okay. On that, you notice that there's the impressions within the last 7 days. How many profile views have you had in the last 90 days, and a number of followers that you have, but also the number of search appearances that you've had in the last week. Those are the things that's kind of the analytics that give you what you're doing and what's going on with your profile online. Another area that you can work on or list things about yourself is your featured section, where you can list samples, you can show samples of your work, presentations that you've made, which are those that I'm using there, and postings that you've done, articles that you may have written, and your portfolio even. My son is a motion graphic designer, and he has what it called his reel, which are samples of his work of motion graphic design that he's used. But you can also use documents, links, photos, and even your resume. One thing about using your resume, though, it comes out of date pretty quickly. So update it frequently, change it out maybe once a week, if you will. And that's one of the ways that you can refresh your resume. So let's take a look at your summary section. This is a particularly longer one. I normally recommend like Terry Sullivan does, that you limit your paragraphs to 4 or 5 lines and then have a break and then a new paragraph as well. But you have 22,000 characters that you could actually play with. As we look at some of your profiles today in the About section, they're probably not going to be 2,000 characters. Some of them will be just 1 or 2 paragraphs. This one I like in particular because it's particularly well written. It does have, as it noticed there at the top, my email at gmail.com. Okay. So I know how to get in touch with that person, at least by email. So the contact information is there on the first line. Short paragraphs of 4 to 5 lines, as I mentioned. Then you can use bullets, if you will, to break in between to show accomplishments if you want. And you do want to start with action verbs because they're very positive. LinkedIn is also, it allows you to branch out and use first person. And these are some summaries that are pretty good ones. I'm a grateful partner to many world-class award-winning companies in executive coaching and leadership development. The companies are executive coaching, training, and talent development. And then the other one is I'm a strategic, creative, hands-on marketer. Again, normally if somebody were to put that in a resume, recruiters have a little bit of a hesitancy to look at that. They sometimes even consider it as fluff without examples to make that a little bit more concrete. So those are just some examples of summaries that you can use. Let's move on to your experience section. This is from a section in my profile online. But in your experience section, you have your job title, your company name and dates, and your duties and responsibilities. Again, try and limit those to 3 to 5 lines. Otherwise, people won't read them. And bulleted areas of expertise and accomplishment. Notice when I pulled that out, because I was with Oracle Corporation, it pulled their logo in here. And we'll do that on my own, actually, because Oracle acquired Siebel, that's linked to my Oracle experience as well. But you notice my description of my duties is for 3.5 lines. I also included an email that Amanda Gill, the Director of Recruiting for North America at Oracle, sent when I left Oracle in 2010. Again, the other thing that you could do with each section of your experience is to add some accomplishments. There were 2 major ones that I had at Oracle. Twice was selected as recruiter of the quarter from among 50 recruiters. That means I was the top recruiter twice in my 4 years at Oracle, 2 quarters that I was the top recruiter out of 50. So, and I was also selected to go from among that 50 group of recruiters on the consulting organization's annual trip to Nassau in the Bahamas. So that's something that you can do with your profile. Okay. The other thing that's very, very important for you, if you are not working right now, yes, if you're not working, you want to add a position to include that you're out of work and looking for a job. You can also add for volunteer experience. My profile occurred before that was able to do that, and so it's all embedded in my current profile. And you can also have one on projects. But let's take a look at a sample of a profile for someone who's out of work. This is just one that's very easy to do. You can add what they're looking for, the primary title that you're looking at, that you're looking for a full-time position, or maybe contract or consultant, and that you're searching for an opportunity in a particular industry. This said for financial services, it could be as equally as telecommunications or some other field. And then you could add locations. Location is there. As you see the intelligence, there's a Dallas County, Dallas, Texas, but there's also a Dallas, Georgia, and a Dallas, Oregon that are there. But by having these things on there, that gives you that. And having a current position is one of the values that LinkedIn gives you, having a current position. Because if you're out of work, that's a minus for you, and you don't occur in that category. If you've had a lot of project work, this is another one for project work. And as a recruiter at Oracle and Siebel, I used to get a lot of resumes that had somebody that had worked in IT consulting. They'd have a page for each project that they worked on. But you can see this one was a program manager, the dates. Okay. And they can also, the organization that I worked with the Dallas-Fort Worth Staffing Management Association, a professional group that I was with. Moving on, we can look at your skills and endorsements area. This is a vital one as well, because recruiters, in addition to your duties and your skills, they look for your skills. Well, and LinkedIn has a whole source of that. Now they allow you to have up to 100 skills that you can list. And we'll show you how to find some of those in just a second. And if you look down there under suggested skills based on your profile, those are checked. And if you just click on those, they'll pop up in your profile. So, but you need to reorder your skills so that they show up, because with the 100, typically shows just one or two. One of the ways to find your skills is to go to an organization, that URL up there, as I see, as GitHub.io, Career Explorer, et cetera. But if you skip down to where it is down there, you'll open something up like this. They have about 150 job titles, and we'll show the skills that are involved in each of those and how you might match up to those. Okay, that's something that you can do in that. And it's also for major metropolitan areas. One question I will ask you, are your skills organized for maximum input? If you don't organize them, LinkedIn's going to choose your top 2 or 3, and that's all that appear without somebody having to click through and take a look at them. Okay, these are ones from mine. So how do you reorganize those? Well, first you click on the pencil that's there, and then you can click on the 3 dots, and then you can click on, reorder your skills. Okay, and you can do that by holding your cursor over the 4 lines to the right and drag and drop. And you can rearrange those periodically. I suggest that you do that something about once a week, because the skills that LinkedIn has chosen may not be the ones that highlight who you are with your greatest strengths. Okay. Another thing that I'll suggest for every one of you is to take a look at other people. Okay, why would you want to take a look at them? Well, if you did, I did a search on myself for recruiters in the Dallas-Fort Worth area today, and I did not show up in the first 10 screens. That's 100 thumbnail sketches. I used to show up on the first or second page because when I was more active on LinkedIn. So activity on LinkedIn is a key ingredient for getting ranked high on LinkedIn. Okay. If you don't show up in that, take a look at somebody else's profile. Open it up like this one, and find out how many times recruiters there. You see recruiters on the top. She's also used senior recruiter, senior talent acquisition, which is another word for recruiter, partner, and talent acquisition, and that dedicated recruiter that she's in there. So looking at other people will help you. If you find some words that describe you and they're not in your profile, feel free to copy them and use them. But don't copy them verbatim, because somebody may know that other person and know that it's not you. So moving on, right now we want to switch gears and look at job hunting as well. So how do you do searches on LinkedIn, and how does LinkedIn run a search, and how do recruiters actually call a search? Because there's some differences in recruiter search results. But you can search for things like on keywords, you can look on job titles, you can look for companies, locations, functions, experience level, etc. So what do recruiters really search for? What do recruiters, when they do a search on somebody, the first kind of thing they look for is a match of job titles. And you have job titles in your headline, your open to work section, your about, and employment sections, both present and past job titles. So job titles is one of the key things that recruiters look for. They also look for keywords and skills. Those are the things that people look at as well. And they also look for specific industries or specific companies. Some industries, like healthcare, are notorious for seeking people with healthcare experience. Well, how do you break into that field? Okay, I know of people who've done that. It takes a special tweaking of your profile and your resume to get accepted in that area. Because recruiters really prefer candidates who've done the job before. So that's the target that they'll search for with job titles. Nextly, they'll identify education and geographic location. As I said, 25 miles is usually the rule of thumb that recruiters set of search unless it's a nationwide search that they're working on, or unless it's a particular position. Like when I was with Oracle, I had searched for computer consultants. They could be located anywhere in the United States where Oracle had an office. So education is another important factor that you have. Okay. Another area is your current and prior company. People do look at your pedigree. They want to find out where you've been, how long you've been there. Okay. Next thing that they look at, then they turn over and look at your experience and your summary. So what are they looking at there? Well, they'll look at the job title, the headline. Does it have the keywords that appear in their job posting? Okay. That's one of the things that they ask themselves. The next thing that they look at is your about section. Is it a concise, short summary of your experience, expertise, and achievements? What did you accomplish performing those duties? And does your experience simply focus on your duties and responsibilities as a recruiter? Unfortunately, I can tell you that 90% of the resumes that I read as a recruiter simply focused on somebody's duties and responsibilities. They did not show what they'd accomplished performing those duties and responsibilities. Same applies to somebody's profile, although not as much so. Things have changed. But those are the things that actually recruiters look for. Then they look at your activities in post. Do they reflect your expertise? Are you commenting on somebody else's post? Do you have knowledge and expertise? Okay. Well, that's one of the things that we want to take a look at. How does the LinkedIn search algorithm work? Okay. Well, first, you receive a score for each section of your profile and, importantly, for your activity on LinkedIn. Your ranking in searches is based on the sum of these values. The higher scores appear at the top of the list of the results based on the qualifications being sought. So that's kind of what recruiters are looking at. But let's take a look at a LinkedIn document that is available to LinkedIn Recruiter on LinkedIn Recruiter or LinkedIn Recruiter Lite. This is the document I got on somebody's at that time. When I copied this screenshot, there are only about 710 million on LinkedIn. But you notice this, that individual, when I did a search like that, that could check any of these like location, skills and assessment, companies, schools, year of graduation, job titles. They could sift through that 710 million people in 30 seconds to come up with a location. Okay. So let's take a look at some results from a search, okay, on somebody's background. Recruiter does a search looking for background. In this particular case, they're looking for a product manager, and ideally located in the Seattle area, but they would consider somebody from Silicon Valley down in the San Francisco area. The skills that they were looking for were product management and product marketing. Often those two are intertwined, but they were also looking for somebody who's done competitive analyses. And the companies, they've listed a couple of companies up in the Seattle area like Fluke and Amazon and Microsoft. And they just happened to mention University of Washington as one of those schools that's in the general area of Seattle up there. Another search that was done, this one was for a project manager in Chicago. Notice that there are only 43,000, almost 43,000 in the pool of candidates that are available. Not all of those people are looking for a job. Open to new work at that time, when that was available, open to work, there were only 83 who had clicked that. Okay, so recruiters are probably going to look at those first 83 before they move on to see if they have the qualifications. Other things that you can do is to follow a company and have company connections there. Those are things that you can do. But in this case, they were looking for somebody in the Chicago area, but we'll consider somebody from either coast, San Francisco or the New York. And again, business strategy and analytics. But other things that they'd done were corporate development and market management consulting. They'd consider with people like that. And they've chosen a few companies. Now, how do you go about searching for jobs? Well, there are two areas that you can use. You can use the search box that's by LinkedIn's logo there, or you can use the jobs tab. Either one will allow you to find jobs. If you happen to use the jobs case, that little briefcase that's there, you can look, as I say, for keyword, job titles, companies, etc. Now let's take a look at one there. As I mentioned, if you enter something in the job title, the job search area, and then location. If you don't enter a location, it's going to default to the United States unless you've previously had some searches, probably that day that you've worked on. Okay, and it will default to that location. And then you want to click search. Well, here are some search results for ones that I've used over the years. This one was for a sales representative. Again, because I didn't click a specific area in the United States, I only came up with about 200,000 results. far too many for any good recruiter to take a look at, so they would probably refine the search to a geographic area. Okay. The next search results was for a senior accountant in Plano, Texas. Again, notice the 25-mile radius. You can up that to 50 or lower it to 15 and 10 and 5 as well. In that particular search, there were 144 jobs that were available underneath the arrow that you see there. And you can also search by and use filters for industry, salary level, age, posting, location, and the function, as you mentioned. Not all of those filters, LinkedIn has refined those. Not all of those filters will appear on the search results that you do as you enter that in. This one was for what I did for the quality assurance quarterly meeting here in Dallas. We did a search for quality assurance people on LinkedIn. In that case, there turned out to be about 1,922 people, but most of those, I would say, were quality assurance technicians or inspectors. And again, this was a group of senior individual contributors and managers. So we added a little bit of refinement to the title, added manager. It narrowed the search down to 174, reduced it by 90%, if you will. Okay. Those are active jobs. And you notice something there that's interesting. From my background, identified because I'm a Texas Aggie, and notified there are 10 people at that company that were from A&M. Okay, so that's something else that you could do in terms of LinkedIn and how you get in touch with people. Notice one other thing that's over here. They've listed salary, and increasingly the salaries are being listed with jobs. That's now a legal requirement in California, New York, and Massachusetts. Okay, but that's something that you want to consider in terms as you look at the results from that. Okay, let's take a look at another one. This one was for an executive assistant in the, again, Dallas-Fort Worth area. But notice I mentioned that Dallas, Georgia, it's there. Okay. And they were in this case 960 at the time. But one of the things I will mention to you is the filters. And this screenshot is an old one, but it includes all the filters that LinkedIn has. You can't find it anymore. I haven't been able to find it anywhere. But again, I'll take that back. We got jumped ahead for me. You can also find jobs by clicking on that down arrow by jobs. And notice there's an area called groups. If you click on the groups, you can look within groups. In groups, anybody that's a member of a group, and you can join up to 100 groups. Anybody that's a member of a group can post a job opening. It does not cost anything to post within the group. Within LinkedIn proper, it's about $250 to post a job for 30 days. So that's something that you could do. Not all groups post jobs, but some do. And they do post jobs within the group because most groups are affinity groups. People like themselves. So they're looking for candidates like themselves, and they're most likely to respond to something like that. So the competition within a group is typically much smaller. So they're more likely to find somebody with the background that they're interested in. I know I did that when I was looking for an actuary within the United States, and I narrowed it down to an actuaries within Texas, and narrowed it down by location up there at the top, and had, I think, about 50 people that were an actuary here in Texas. Here's that screenshot on filters. One that I recommend for everybody on every search that you do is to limit your search to the past week. Okay, because a lot of jobs are filled very quickly, so you don't want to sift through there. But looking for a recruiter in Dallas anytime, which means any job that is not taken down, is still out there. There were 2,000. By limiting it to the last week, it reduces that by 60%. Okay. Something that LinkedIn has picked up from Indeed.com, which is probably one of the best search agencies, job search boards that's out there right now, is salary limitations. Now, if you're talking to somebody who is a salary analyst with a company, they would poo-poo the salaries that are listed there, but they are an indication of what kind of salaries are available or are being paid. The other comment that I'll make on this column over here is the easy apply. Do not, I repeat, do not use easy apply unless it allows you to upload a current resume that you've tailored for the job. Otherwise, an easy apply will simply take your profile and use that as your resume to apply for the job. And your profile may not be tailored to the job that you're looking for. You can also look for industry-wide. You notice medical practice at several hospitals for recruiters there. And there are staffing agencies that are also available to that. It also has a list for companies. Deloitte and HCA Healthcare, which is Medical City here in Dallas, was actually looking for a lot of recruiters over time. And location, if I were living in Plano, which I do, I may not want to go all the way over to Garland or out to Irving for a job. And notice also the one thing that's there are the full-time jobs. Most jobs on all job boards are going to be permanent full-time. but you may be looking for a contract position or an internship or part-time work or temporary or even volunteer. Some of the people I've talked to that have come through job workshops have taken part-time jobs like at the animal control or working for part-time in a hospital. Somebody asked me in an email today, did I know of any hospital organizations who are looking for part-time individuals? So that's something that you can consider. But do take a look at the filters on the jobs that you're looking at. Next thing you can look at, one thing that'll help you in your job searches by creating a job alert. Sometimes like that recruiter, and you can move that radio button from left to right. If you do that, you see that in the picture below, and then you will get notification of any new jobs that are posted that meet your qualifications, either daily or weekly. And I choose daily. I still get a lot because I've helped people find jobs. I show them how to do that. And so I'm getting a lot of recruiter type openings still. But the daily ones or the weekly ones, they tend to come in between 7 and 8 in the morning. Okay. So that's something to be aware of, that you can do that by switching. And you can switch those off and manage your jobs. Okay. So some homework for you, and then we can possibly take a look at a couple of your profiles or looking for jobs to find jobs. Some things that you want to be aware of. Do complete all of the sections of your profile to increase your rankings. And use the name you normally use. My legal name is John Locke Alderson Jr. So when the telemarketers call and they ask for John Alderson, I ask that which one, and they say, well, John Sr. And I say, well, unfortunately, you're about 20 years too late. And if they ask for John, my son, he's living down in Austin. Do refresh your profile at least once a week. You may want to even do it daily. I mentioned changing your skills level. Okay, are the job titles that you have on that, particularly in some of the areas in the about section or in your open to work sections? Do include the job titles that you're looking for. You don't have to limit it to just one. A lot of the title headlines that we look at will not use the full 220 characters. And yes, they do keep track of the character count for you. Open to work allows you to list the 5 additional job titles and where you want to work. And do list your phone number and email on the first line of your about section. Your experience section, you want to have measurable results along with those job titles, or those words that said I'm an outstanding executive, or what qualifies you an outstanding executive. Give an example with some measurable results, and choose a couple of the skills that support you, who best describe who you are and what your skills are. Okay, and do the search about yourself. Jeff, I'll turn it over to you and see if we can switch gears.
If you would like us to look at your profile, we will do that. Just type your name or address in the chat window, and we will go take a look.
Okay. I think I get my window up there.
Yep, we see it. You're on
Okay.
LinkedIn.
Somebody
All right,
want to give us?
the first person who wants to take a look is Dana, Dana. The last name is Pelan.
Uh, okay, one of the things I did there, I mentioned that I'm not looking at people, so I have to look at people for Dana. Is that you?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, Dana and I are first degree connections, but I'll look in his contact information, see if he's opened that up. He has not. He has his phone number and his email address, which is great. That's something that you do over in your security settings. Okay. And I won't go into that. You just have to go over into me over here and look at your security settings. He's used about, I would guess, uh, 3 lines. You've probably used about 100 characters there, maybe 120. You have additional ones, but what you can do is modify those to show examples. On mine, it has successful executive recruiter, recognized speaker, or words that you can use. I mentioned that table that's in the chart that's in my slide deck. If you want that, lockealderson@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to send you the whole book of slides. Okay? So that's something that you can do. Moving on down, we're members of the group. He's got his contact information on the top line because that's what shows up when a recruiter looks at. They have 3 lines and to see more. And we'll take a look at more. He has broken it up so it's easy to read. Notice how he has it. I think the most that he's got is 3 lines. There's one with 4 lines that he's got. He's got some areas of expertise down at the bottom, which is something that's designed for LinkedIn in search mode. Okay. He's got some accomplishments there. Drove a 60% reduction in store costs, opening costs, and 25 million. The one suggestion that I could have here is where 25 million, add the zeros and take the million out. It creates a bigger impact on somebody's brain. Okay. And then looking at his experience level, okay. This is what shows up on somebody's level. But notice, are you still, Dana, are you still with True Value?
No, I just lost my job just a few days ago. I always got a lot of value out of these sessions. So this is the first, I'm literally just in my infancy of my job search. So
Okay. One of the things that you want to do is to create a new position. Okay. And there's going to be a blue pencil over in this area over in here, maybe black, I don't know where it is, that you can add, or a plus sign that you can add a position. And you can write it out that you're currently looking for what an account manager, strategic account manager in what area are you looking at? You're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Okay. That you, what kind of industry that you may be looking for. True Value is hardware stores. Okay. ADI, I'm not familiar with that. Okay. But more, he was working remote with True Value as a regional account manager here in, I guess, covering New York, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota. That's an unusual grouping of states, to say the least. Notice how here, when he was with Bed Bath & Beyond, his jobs have been linked together for all of those. And the companies, if the company's been acquired, like I mentioned, Oracle acquired Siebel. Those are 2 linked on mine. The other thing I want to do is looking down at he's taken some certification exams on LinkedIn, which you can do. You have to pass those with at least a 70 before they'll let you post it. And if you don't make it, you have to wait. I think you can take it one more time, then you have to wait a year before you can take it. He's got his volunteer experience with the pit crew is on there on Goodwill. Okay, these are the 2 things that he's got. As a recruiter, leadership development would not be one that I would choose as a top one to show. Okay. Strategic planning, if that's what he's had. But what is your biggest accomplishment? What is your biggest selling point that you have from his group of 50? Okay. That you can see how they grouped. Operations management, possibly retail sales, inventory management. I probably would not, unless that's the job title he's looking for. Okay. If customer satisfaction is one there are increasingly jobs in that particular area. Service standards, probably not. Store management, possibly. If he managed a group of stores, that would be probably something that I would include there. Okay. But you do want to go through and reorganize those. When you get into this section, there's going to be that blue pencil, and then you can go to the dots. And when you get the dots, it'll allow you to reorder those. And there's going to be 4 lines by each one of these, just to be the title of each of those. Notice one thing that he's also done, he's identified where he used these things at Bed Bath and Beyond, and also this one, people he's known that do that. Okay. So that's a primary one that he's worked with. Questions that you may have, Dana?
no, I appreciate the input, Locke. Like I said, I always got a lot of value from these things, and I've got some brushing up to do. So
You do, but it's pretty good looking. Okay. His endorsements, again, are things that he got there. Didn't look and see if he had any recommendations. He does. Okay, this is okay, but notice one thing that's here. This is back in 2020. If you can get a couple more current ones, I think they'll add value to that. That's a pretty good recommendation that's there from Bed Bath and Beyond. Or was that channel, omni-channel? Okay. But those are the things that you can talk about. The recommendations are important. I know I've been fortunate to gather about 40 recommendations, and 2 of them are from my work as from helping people in job and career placement. Okay. My screen is jumping around at me again. Let's try somebody else, Jeff.
Okay, the next name on here is Melissa, Melissa. Last name Holland, Holland.
Is that you, Melissa? That first one that's a CMP?
Yes.
Okay. Notice we're second degree connections. She's got a good background, banner background on her. Okay. You can add your phone number and your contact information there as Jeff has done with his, but let's look and see. I'm looking for, okay, she has her email address. It makes it easy to contact her that way. Some people, if you do not want to have the marketing calls, and I'm getting probably at least a couple at least 3 or 4 per day. If I haven't used up all my Social Security benefits that I'm entitled to. And I have, but they just don't have it recorded. So I want to do that. But she has her email address. You can get a Google phone number. They will screen the calls for you. I don't know how to do it, but just open Google. How do I get a Google phone number? They'll give you the instructions. Okay. Her about section. Again, those are the first 3 lines that she has. I would still recommend that you put your contact information at the top. First line, make it easy for that person to call you. Pick up the phone. Okay, you've used probably about 400 characters there. If you can put some accomplishments in there, it would be helpful. Bulleted type accomplishments, you can use a star. I mean, the asterisk is another way that you can do it if you're using the editor within LinkedIn. Otherwise, I suggest you type it in Word and cut and paste it in there. It's an easy way to do that. Okay. The other thing I like to look at, okay, her last, where am I? Am I not current?
That is my last role.
No, while I was looking at you, you need to add a job
Yeah.
for what you're doing. Okay.
Mhm.
Your current job or what you're doing. What are you, executive business partner? What is that? Okay. What are the duties what were the accomplishments of that? What were the measurables that you had in the 3 years, almost 4 years with Foundry as a business effort? A current position you want to have, what are you looking for? What is the one thing that you're doing? And you can change that periodically. That's one of the ways that you can update your profile on a weekly basis. Okay. And that example is in the deck, the slide deck, if you want to ask me for it. There, the volunteer experience is there, the skills, trade show planning, and trade show management. If I looked at your skills, I would think that may be the only area that you're looking for a job. And that's probably not true.
Right. That's correct.
Okay. So I want to choose and go in and use that pencil, the plus and the 3 dots, and you can reorder those. And you can do that reordering on a regular basis. Corporate
Mhm.
events. Okay. Let's see what you've got under those. And you can choose other things. Operations management, program management, partnership, certified meeting professional. So meeting planning and those kind of things are corporate events, strategic events are ones that are important to you. But a C-level executive support would be one that I might consider for you as well, because you've been working at the C level. Okay, but you've got to live out trade shows and event production. Are things that are strong in your background. Okay. So those are what I can suggest for you, Melissa. Jeff, do we have somebody else?
Well, it's almost to the top of the hour, so we'll stop it there. If you'd like to get a copy of the slide deck that Locke has, you're welcome to send him an email. Just ask him for the deck. If you want to connect with Locke on LinkedIn, you can do the same thing. Just look for that face and you'll find them on LinkedIn. Next week, our speaker is going to be Kurt Vondermatter. He's a retained search executive at Linked Executive Search. He's going to talk about LinkedIn from a recruiter's eye, what he's doing to try to find you. He's trying to place people all over the country, and he's a retained search executive, meaning that companies hire him solely to try to fit certain roles that they're filling. So Locke will be with us. Kurt will be with us next Tuesday at 1 o'clock. Tomorrow, the practice interview team is meeting in person. They will be online, in person only. They meet in person on the first, second, third, and fifth Wednesday of the month. On the fourth Wednesday of the month, which it'll be August 26th this month, they will be online so you can watch from anywhere. You will learn just as much by going and watching somebody else being interviewed. You'll hear other people say really great things. Oh, I got to make sure I say it that way. Or, oh, I better make sure I never say it that way. The nice thing about the practice interview team is that there's always reviews after the person is interviewed. So after a 45-minute interview, there'll be about 15 to 20 minutes of feedback, and you don't get that at a real interview.
Most of the people who go through this, it's a tougher interview than you actually have when you actually got the job. Okay.
Yeah.
It's very valuable. I was on the team for about a year and a half, I guess. And my activities with Mullen International interfered with that, so I had to step down. But it's well done. And Jeff's book, if you haven't read it, is one of the best short job hunting books that I've read. And my library still has probably a couple of dozen job hunting books.
Thank you, Locke. This Friday at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group, being the first Friday of the month, we always do open forum. We'll answer any questions you have about your job search, and you can give feedback to other people's questions. So come join us for, I never know where the topics are going to go and what we're going to talk about, but so join us this Friday at the North Dallas group. You can join us in person at the same location as the Pit Crew Christ United Methodist Church in Plano, or you can join us on Zoom via online. You're welcome to join the Career DFW or Career USA LinkedIn groups. I started each one when I started the websites. You do not need to live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area to be part of the DFW group. We've got over 16,000 members, and the nice thing about it is once you've connected with somebody else in a group, you can then you can directly message anybody else who happens to be in that group. This session has been recorded. It will be on the Career USA YouTube channel later this afternoon. If you'd like to subscribe to the channel, that way every time we post a new video, you'll find out about it. On the USA YouTube channel, click on playlist. Every video I post goes into one of 7 different playlists. Don't click on the video because it'll start playing the video. It'll start to play it right away, the most recent one. Otherwise, down where you see that red arrow, view full playlist. If you click there, up will come a list of all the dates, speakers, and events, and you can pick the speaker that you'd like to go and watch their presentation. If you're not receiving emails about our workshop, please join the Career USA mailing list. You can just scan this QR code and send a blank email, or just send a blank email to Career USA, the + subscribe at groups.io. You'll never be spammed. I control the list. I only send out 3 or 4 emails a week, and all those emails will have links so you can join via Zoom. Please remember, Career DFW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Locke is a volunteer. All of our speakers are volunteers. I'm a volunteer. Everything I've done over the last 17 years has just been to help you land your next great opportunity. So thank you very much for joining us today, everybody. Have a great week, and hopefully we'll see you later in the week.
Locke, I have a question before we go, since I didn't get a turn. On my title